Welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm co-host Nessa.
And I'm co-host Drew.
Today we have a guest again. Before we introduce him, just a little intro. We wanted to start a mental health segment on the podcast. We've been talking about this for a while. Took us a while to figure out how we wanted to go about it, but mental health is very important to us, and it's something I feel like it's not talked about enough just yet. The stigma is still kind of there, and so we wanted to open up this conversation with a bunch of people because I feel like it's something that affects the queer community a lot. And so, safe space, trying to create that here all the time. So, with that, today we have Mark. Mark, if you could introduce yourself, how you identify, and how you got into hockey.
Hello, my name's Mark. I identify as bisexual, and so essentially today it's just talking about what have I experienced from a child to now and the struggles that I went through.
However, you kind of want to go about starting that, we'll kind of let you take the reins.
I guess I would start from when I was in elementary school. Um, like any other kid, going to school, meeting friends, playing with them. It just happened to be a classmate of mine that decided to do things in the school washroom to me. Um, at that time, I had mixed views about it, but at the same time, I did protect myself, trying to push him off, things like that. It happened from grade 3 to grade 5, and I told teachers, I told the school principal, nothing happened to the kid other than me getting detention because they talked to the kid. The kid denied it, and they blamed me. My family found out about that incident, and from the school, and my family just took it as, well, you must have done something to that kid for him to do that to you. So it's your fault. And that just kind of started the whole mindset at a young age is, am I good enough? Am I actually a person that people see? And I just went into more of a shy mode. I stuck to myself, and that just made it worse because with me not telling anybody else about what's happening inside my head at that time, um, leading into my uncle, my brother doing things to me at home as well, um, just took a mental health toll on me. That's where I started to think about suicide in grade 7, especially when I knew that I was different. Um, when most people were into dating girls, liking girls, I started to have feelings towards guys. And I'm like, well, this is not normal. And I didn't want to be this way. And those are the thoughts in my head at first. And essentially, what happened after that was hiding it and being ashamed of it. So, without telling anybody, I went into hockey. Started to play some hockey games. That was all fun until my uncle became a coach on my team. That's when I dropped hockey due to the torment from my uncle, um, getting the team to kind of bully me as well. So that pushed me into going away from hockey. I watched hockey on TV. My favorite team is the Maple Leafs, um, but I just did not have that happy place anymore outside of the ice rink. I started to cut my arms a bit, just enough for the emotional pain I was feeling to numb it. So that leads into kind of high school time when I was not telling anybody about what I was experiencing, but I had, I guess, the opportunity to tell one of my close friends on how I was feeling. And I didn't say anything. I used a juice bottle and told him that I was bisexual. And he took it as, okay, that's fine. Um, Never really talked about it afterwards. I was mostly in a 4 or 5 group of friends. They were there to support me without knowing who I actually was, other than that one person. Um, I think some people realized that I was different, um, but nobody really picked on me. I got into law enforcement. I was a security guard, and it was just through that time when I found a partner, and he was volunteering at a hockey game, Brampton Battalions, that used to be in Brampton, but is in North Bay Battalions now in the OHL. He and I started to date secretly because my family disapproved of this type of relationship. They knew, but at the same time, and for me to live at home, I had to make the promise that I had to only date girls. For me to have a roof over my head, have food, and if they found out about this relationship that I had, they would, I don't know, kick me out like they did and when they found out from my uncle. And I didn't want to live on the streets. So everything was going good. I had, I guess I would say, two lives. One was trying to make my family happy, and I'm not dating anybody. And then secretly going around dating one of my best friends. And so I would say COVID hit, and that's when that really started the downfall again for me and suicidal thoughts. So it started when my partner passed away from COVID 19, and I still remember the day that it happened, December the 13th, 2020. I knew that he was going to pass away when I saw that video chat. And I tried to talk to the nursing staff about me seeing him, but it was denied due to the COVID rules, and the nursing staff did not believe that he was on his deathbed. Um, I get it. She's a nursing staff. She's done all the training. I also work in hospitals. I've done many code blue calls. It's very hard, very upsetting. And when I saw that and the eyes just over by the video, I knew that he was going to make it. That I went to work. I called work probably 2 hours before, bawling my eyes out, telling them I can't make it through the whole 12 hours tonight. And work said that, maybe you should just stay home and, get some rest. And, well, I would have done that, but I had an argument about not going to work and going to work with him. So, to make me to feel better, that I promised my boyfriend at the time that I would go to work. Um, right around 10 o'clock, I got that feeling that something terrible happened. And 10:30, I got the call from his mother, the hospital. He passed away. What I did not know what was going to happen was his parents was going to put it out into the newspaper and mention that I was dating him. My family saw that in the newspaper, and that's when the conversation changed with them. Why were you dating him? You never told us. You promised us you would not have this type of relationship. It's against God. It's against everything that they believe in. and I went to work, and they called me saying that all my stuff was out to the curb. When I came home, everything that had belonged to me was in a box in a black bags, and I had to put it into my car. For about 2 months, I was sleeping in my car. After that, going to work, going to places that I knew that helped people that were struggling on the streets, and taking showers there, cleaning my clothes, cleaning work clothes, and trying to keep up that mentality of I'm okay around people. I didn't want colleagues to know, and I was ashamed of what I was going through. Mentally, it was draining. I was going to work thinking about every single way that I can in my life. It just got closer towards Christmas and things like that. That time of year was very tough on me. Um, Going into 2021, I acted like I was okay all the way until end of the year, and that's when it really sat in that where I'm like, I have nobody. My partner passed away last year, and then I'm like, my family doesn't want to see me. They don't call me anymore. I can't call them, and friends don't know at the time either, other than one person, and colleagues don't even know me. And I'm like, maybe it is time for me to end my life. And I got sick, and I had a lot of headaches, so I took Tylenol. And I know it's not that addictive, but it still helped with the emotional pain. So even when I didn't need it, I still took the Tylenol because it was helping that. I did that until a coworker noticed me passed out into my car. And normally I don't sleep in the car at work. I would go to another plaza or anything to sleep because I was still sleeping in my car at that time. And once that coworker asked me, investigating why I was sleeping, passed out, and not normal like how they would see me, I pushed that person away and didn't want him to know anything. And it was that same time when my family went on to Facebook, Instagram, and just started to out me to everybody that I had on there, and literally call me every single name in the book to degrade me as a person. And instead of talking, I continued to run away from that incident, from people that wanted to talk things out with me, because I was afraid of if I admit this, how are they going to respond to me? And a coworker decided to call the police, and the police came in. They decided to investigate, and I told them that yes, family went online, they messaged all these people, posted things, but I'm not ready to tell my story at that time, and I didn't even want to admit to it. I told them that you can tell a coworker that I was behind it, and I just want everything just to go away. I know he's worried about me. I know that he cared a bit, but I wasn't trusting of him, and I wasn't getting that space that I needed and the time to think. The police understood. Um, they suggested that for me to actually go speak to professionals, and they gave me essentially a week to decide what to do. I went to go to Humber River, talk to the psychiatrist there, talk to the emerge doctor, the merge doctor was like shocked. He saw these messages that my mother sent me, my sister sent me, hateful, degrading messages. And he's like, I honestly don't believe this could be a family doing this to you. And he's like, I need to talk to them, but I need your permission. And I gave that permission to the doctor to call. And that doctor came back, and I would not forget his words. And his words was, you need to cut your family out of your life. Because if you don't, you're either going to end up back into mental health or you're going to actually end your life. And I don't know if I needed that doctor to tell me that, but from that day forward, I didn't even message my family again. I deleted the numbers. I deleted Facebook, deleted Instagram, started a whole new Instagram, refused to use my last name on it so they can't find me. And to this day, I still don't talk to them. They still don't reach out to me. And it got to a point where I kind of accepted that now. And I started to accept myself for who I was as a person. And I still remember going to dinner, going to with some of the colleagues, and they were asking me. The first time that they asked me, I denied it. The second time, I'm like, yeah, what my family was saying online is true, and I'm not going to hide that from you guys. And at the same time, I was also doing therapy, so I was taking her advice on maybe it's time to open up to these work colleagues because they're trying to engage into conversations, but you're the one that's holding back. They're trying to get to know you, but you have these memories of your family doing all these terrible things to you. But these are not your family members. And these sounds like they're very caring people. Just give them a chance to actually know you and see what their reaction is going to be. Because while I was talking to the therapist about my friends, they're like, they sound like very good people. Sounds like they're very caring because they're reaching out, they're trying to talk to you, but you're the person that's holding back. And they kind of just put me into that position where I started to tell who I was, and all of them was like very supportive. They told me that my family was very mean and should have never done that at all, and literally had my back. And the more that I talked, the more I actually feel happier that it's finally out. It's finally out there, and I feel free. So now, you know, I don't need to hide it around people. I don't even have to hide at work anymore. I don't feel like I have to live that double life like I was doing before for like probably 13 years.
I can't relate to the T with your experience, but I can relate to how important it is to seek help. Um, I can relate to why you were not willing to let people in to know you. My parents divorced when I was like 15, but the way that it went about is essentially my dad cheated on my mom and then he abandoned the family. And being someone who is American, but also Chinese and Filipino, there's all these like cultural intersections, and it causes a bit of a confusion when you grow up and you're not growing up in the motherlands. because then there's the conflict of like behaviors, and those tend to be clashing. And one of the things that was confusing around the time is when that happened, Asian culture tends to try to save face. Nothing is wrong in the family, and if something is wrong with the family, you keep it in the family. American culture tends to be more outspoken about those things, and at that time, I was seeking how should I handle this situation, and if they're going about life like nothing's wrong, then I guess I should be going about my life like nothing's wrong. But that's not the case at all. We were going through something really traumatic, the way that it happened. And I probably could have greatly benefited by getting to talk to somebody about the experience instead of that happening in my household and then being expected to go to school and not talk about it because that's that is what they're showing me is how I should go about it. You find ways to cope, and they're not good ways to cope. And one of the things that I ended up doing was I would shut people out, or I would like not let too many people in to see who I really was. And it also didn't help when I realized that I was queer. And one of my best friends is Christian, and I'm not saying that there aren't religious people who are accepting of the queer community, but this person was not. And that also kind of shook my trust issues a bit further because this is somebody that I shared so much of my life with. And now there's a part of me that is not wrong, and but because of that, now your perspective is changing on me. And when you have people taking your trust for granted, when you're already somebody who has prior experiences with somebody that should be there and to love you, in my case, my dad decided he didn't love me enough to stay in contact with me. It kind of like becomes this ripple effect. It becomes, this avalanche. And the more you don't seek help for that, the more you normalize that that's how I should go about life. And maybe, and you don't see that you're shutting people out who just want to help you. At a certain point, it does come to a head. Unfortunately, we hope that it doesn't take that long. And now you're on this journey of, self healing and accepting yourself. And I think the part that I also want to point out that's so important is I understand that as much as people say that like family is so important, I think in this community, we understand at a certain point, like you have to cut ties and find your chosen family because what you were going through was detrimental to your very existence. And but we grow up and we're told that you're supposed to love your family, and the way that family members might go about trying to manipulate or try to like steer you in a direction that they want to. um Unfortunately, it's gonna cause you to spiral. um and so I just wanted to point out that this person said you're gonna need to cut ties with your family or it's gonna get worse for you. Like, I'm glad that you did, and I'm sure it wasn't easy, but I'm happy that you're finding yourself in a place where you're starting to heal.
Yeah. Um, you know, just hearing that from the doctor um, made me actually go through with that. Um, in the beginning, I did it because I felt like, you know, it wasn't a normal thing. If you were to talk to people, those questions will be up like, why don't you talk to your family? Why don't you speak to your own mother? And, not, you don't let everybody inside and let them know right away about who you are because, going to different workplaces, things like that, you meet a lot of people. not everybody needs to know. So those questions I knew would come up, and nothing would have made sense to them without that other part involved. So
Yeah, and Jay and Mark, I can listen to both of you guys, sort of open up and share your own experiences. Myself, I can relate to both of you guys in very similar ways. Um, to somebody with a complex trauma, I have complex post traumatic stress disorder. On top of other, we peel one layer of mental health. I think that's probably everybody can maybe has a similar story. You peel one layer and you find there's another layer underneath, right? So there's more stuff to work through and heal. And it is kind of that double-edged sword, right? Is that like you're the trauma that we experience, it conditions us to have these like maladaptive coping mechanisms, and we do things maybe and a lot of times I think we do things with that protective instinct of where we think we're actually giving ourselves that better chance of survivability, but those coping mechanisms like work intuitively, like counterintuitively to like what we're trying to accomplish in healing and getting out of those ruts, right? So you have like your own maladaptive coping mechanisms that you take on from whatever experience you've been given. And then Jay, where you talk about culturally how, where your background, it's we don't really talk about like the bad part, right? Is I grew up in a Southern family. We were a Southern Baptist family in the Baptist Christian Church, and not necessarily a cultural thing, but definitely that sort of insidious, like what happens at home if it doesn't fit the godlike image, we don't talk about it, and it gets swept under the rug. And so then you have like these different sort of conditioning paradigms that layer on top of themselves. So not only do you have these that protective instinct of, well, I'm going to like make myself less vulnerable so I get hurt less, but then you also have that added layer of conditioning on top of it from that cultural angle of like, I'm actually doing, I've been conditioned to know that not opening up is the right thing. So once you get to that point, and Jay, you said it well, eventually it all comes to a head, right? You eventually have to, something happens where you either realize that you have to take that step, or life, I mean, at least in my experience, life kind of just like handed me a bucket of lemons and was like, here you go, kid. Like whatever you make of this bucket of lemons is up to you. You better make some good lemonade if you want to come out on the other side. So eventually life gives you that obstacle, right? That sort of coming to a head moment. And then you realize, you go, wow, like all of these things that I have got me to this point, yeah, they might have given me the ability to get here rather unscathed or in whatever sort of minimal damage, but now you have to sort of pivot and forget almost everything you ever knew about how to show up in the world and be vulnerable with people and make genuine connections and put that authentic uh, just version of yourself first. And that is almost, I think, at least in my experience, and I don't know, Jay, Mark, if you guys can relate, but it's almost like that is the most difficult hurdle to get past, is learning how to show up more authentically and doing so in a way that's unapologetic, right? Like I've been dealt this hand, I've beat this hand, and now I have to learn how to figure out how to show up in the world as I am, and that's I definitely, both of you guys, you had stories like similar things that I had experienced, and I was just thinking about that weird sort of that double-edged sword of complex trauma, right? Where it's you learn how to survive, but then once you get out of that survival sort of field, it's like I don't know if I know how to thrive. I don't know if I know how to live. So you have to put the training wheels back on and relearn everything again from a new, hopefully healthier, starting point.
To that, I think I just wanted to say, I think that's why the queer community, LGBTQ plus, whatever you'd like to refer to it as, I think that's why we like to emphasize so much how important the community is, because a lot of people go through similar experiences, whether like to the T or just to various degrees, like you said. But we all kind of know some form of unacceptance at some point in our lives for the most part. Um, and so we all kind of know how to deal with it and kind of help each other out when we see one of us struggling. And, it's why pride is so important as well. And I wish this is, you know, these are the types of conversations I wish conservatives, like very like the people who need to learn, I wish they would listen into these conversations so they can understand why we want pride nights at these hockey games or other like sporting events and things. It like why it's so important to us. It's not about us shoving rainbows down their throats. It's really just about becoming one big happy family, you know, chosen family, because not everyone has that.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is like the people that need to hear it most of the time don't. But that's the reason why, like you said, Nessa, it's the community is so important. Whether you're, gay, trans, bisexual, lesbian, or any of the other wonderful array of accoutrements that we have in the community. I think in some way or another, maybe one of the threads, the shared threads that we all sort of have is, uh, I don't know of any one person in the community that's had nothing but acceptance. So, like you said, we all have that degree of feeling out of place or unaccepted, or like we don't have a community to belong to. And I think it's so important that, especially in today's times, is that like the community understands that we're all in it together, because all of us have had a situation where we've felt like we weren't welcome and that wasn't our space to occupy. And we should absolutely have, the same, we should be able to occupy the same spaces. I mean, we're just people, and everybody's here having a human experience, and it's always different from the person next to you. So why not be just a little bit kinder and extend that branch of acceptance? I think that's important.
So, Mark, I wanted to ask, what are you doing these days? Because I mean, we're following you on your Instagram. We're seeing you do a lot of great stuff out there, like volunteering. I saw that I think you're on a hockey team now. You're doing a lot of great things, not only for yourself, but extending that. What you hoped was out there when you were going through what you were going through. Like, it seems like you're trying to give back in all sorts of ways. So can you kind of tell us, what you've been kind of doing in your day to day?
Yeah. I do volunteer a lot. Yesterday I did a Santa Claus parade in Brampton, Ontario, and helping out with that, making sure everything goes together and smoothly for all the kids. Um, I also did join the hockey league in Toronto for the Toronto Gay Hockey League Association, and that was for me to open up more and gain more friends in the community, because for many years I obviously denied it and didn't attend to all these pride events before till recently. But um, with that, I would say going into schools, talking about what I've experienced, and getting the message there. Some of the schools that I've went to, um, just having that different talk, different conversation, because I know that there are kids out there that are feeling the same things that I felt in high school, and it doesn't have to be just the LGBT community. It's also, you know, you're trying to make friends. You're trying to go through high school. Everybody at some point feels some type of shame for any reason, and it's just the same common thing is we don't talk about it because we are afraid that the next person beside us may just make fun of us, and everybody has that same feeling. So just getting up there to share and you know yeah, what I went through is a struggle, but if you go out, talk, and open up and be vulnerable, there are better things out there. And it just takes one person to share their story for others to share as well.
Yeah, so we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I saw one of your posts you talking about self care is so important, and I feel like that's a topic I don't hear too much about when mental health is brought up, right? everyone says how important it is to take care of yourself, this and that, but no one actually goes into depth into what self-care looks like for people. And a lot of times people will say, oh yeah, just buy yourself something to make yourself pretty, treat yourself, right? That's not necessarily what self-care is. I wanted to ask you what self-care looks like for you.
Uh, that's actually a very good question. So self care to me is multiple things. So me going to Shinny hockey, going to a hockey game on Sundays evenings. Um, there's also working out in the gym. I have a fitness group that I attend to as well. Um, those different things that makes yourself happy. That's different for everybody. If you like musicals, you can go to a musical. Um, journaling helps. Um, just going through on what the things that you like to do that makes yourself happy. So that's essentially to me what self care is doing activities that you want to do. And who cares what other people think? If you want to go for swimming for an hour or 2 hours and just go and do that. If that's something that you enjoy, makes you happy, that's self care. So
Speaking of the topic of self-care, one of the things that last summer, like literally when my life was falling apart, kind of everything all at once, one of the things that I started employing, it was just randomly that I had a bad summer, end of the summer, I was like, you know what? It was like payday at my job, didn't have plans for Saturday. I was like, I'm going to take myself out and I'm going to call it self-care Saturday. And I absolutely advocate for anybody adopting this. It doesn't even have to be Saturday. If you want to, you can make it like Time Alone Tuesday if you want, but or Solo Sunday. It is probably like the most. I can't talk it up enough. It's just literally like my self care Saturdays typically end up at the bookstore because that's my like favorite happy place. But it's just taking yourself out. Like nobody else, you're not obligated to entertain anybody else's wants or desires. It's just a day with you, yourself. You're out, you're hitting up the places you want to go. Maybe it's to a movie, maybe it's to a bookstore, maybe you're just after like a giant pretzel at the mall. Whatever it is that gets you out and into the world and just able to like have a day of just treating yourself. It doesn't even have to spend money. Like if I stay home sometimes and just paint on my self-care Saturdays. So I speaking of self-care, Nessa, like not a shameless plug my self-care ritual, but I absolutely say like everybody should adopt at least I do it the last Saturday of every month. I definitely like whatever works for people, but find ways to do it, right? Because like at the end of the day, yeah, you might have an outlet, you might have a community, but it comes at the end of the day, it comes down to being able to find that like within yourself, right? And being able to find that sort of homeostasis for yourself. So any way that that's accomplishable, listen, mine's a self care Saturday at the bookstore with a nice coffee and like the chocolate croissant. But
So cozy.
it is fantastic. I look forward to it. People will tell me they'll ask me like, "Oh, what are you doing next Saturday?" I'm like, nothing that involves other people. Like it's a date with it's a date with me, myself, and I.
I'm gonna adopt Thriving Thursdays.
Yes, please do.
So, I mean, I don't think even for some people it's hard to even get out into the world. I think something as simple like example, I am currently struggling right now. I woke up sad this morning and my mom was like, I just went for a walk with the dogs. I was feeling sad too and I felt great. Maybe just go sit outside for a bit. And I was like,
Sit outside
I
and eat a
guess.
banana.
So I ate my breakfast outside sitting next to my cat. And it helped, something as simple as that. Just sit outside on a nice day and it kind of just pulls you out of that I don't know, that icky feeling. Like, I mean, I know it's good to feel sad sometimes. I get that, but you don't want to sulk in it for too long because that's when it can get a little,
That's when it starts to yeah,
dangerous.
the roots start to get deep. It starts to infect. I think if you let it, you can ruminate, right? And I think there's like a healthy way to ruminate too. Is like, okay, I'm gonna sit with this feeling. I'm gonna feel it. But if you let it overcome you, it starts to pollute like every aspect of your being. It's hard to sort of shake that, and I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get in those slumps, it's really hard to dig myself out of that hole. So it's really a battle to just make sure I don't even get there to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constant
I
battle.
feel you.
You guys are having me remember the first time I experienced depression. And on top of having to go on meds for a little bit, like honestly, the sessions that I had with the therapist was, you need to go out and go back to doing something that you enjoy. It's not some magic wand. It's like, when you guys are talking about, like, Nessa, you said you woke up sad, and but your mom was like, just go outside. Like, I woke up sad and I decided, you know what? It's the strength to just do something. Like, it seems so, like, to someone who's never experienced the difference between being sad and on the verge of depression. Like, being sad is like, okay, something sad happened, this morning, like maybe out in the world, or maybe something happened within your family, or maybe just yourself, like maybe you had a hard day and like you're exhausted. Like, that's generally sad. Depression is like on a whole nother level, and it stops you from doing the things that you love to do. It's not that you don't love to do them anymore. It's just you don't have the strength to go and get yourself there. And when I had my first experience with depression, that was the action that I needed to do. And it seems so strange, but it was so hard for me to do it. And after a while, you like I'm not going to say like I know how the mechanics of the brain works, but over time it's like you stop giving energy to the depression, and you start living your life again. um yeah, so that's what I was just thinking when you guys were
So
like,
much, yeah, but it's so much easier said than done.
exactly.
I think
Truly.
for me, when I feel myself struggling, I have come to a point in my life where I'm not ashamed or scared to ask for help, because I've had my bouts of depression multiple times already, and I've gotten to really dark places, and I do my best not to get to those places again, and it gets hard, but there are times where I know I should be doing something to get out of the house, get myself out of the funk, and I just can't, and so I'll ask my mom, or like a sibling or whoever is around, can you go for a walk with me, just to kind of help me get out, and they're down to do it. And even that, just asking for help, I think is so, so important for something as small as go for a walk with me, so I have company, and I feel like I have the support.
Do you guys have like something? I mean, because obviously, like you were saying, Nessa, it's sometimes it's like almost impossible to get you like to feel like you can get yourself out of a rut. Are there things that you guys do, maybe in the line of self care or self wellness kind of tools that you rely on every day? Like for myself, I meditate twice a day. I meditate once in the mornings. I will meditate once before bed. And I also journal. I journal in the morning, and then I sit down and I do gratitude journaling at night. So that kind of helps me keep a really clear head and a really good perspective. I try to get outside and get sunlight as much as possible, but I'm a writer, so it's like I'm kind of allergic to that too.
Right outside.
I have, and crazy enough, that's one of the things that, like, I had writer's block, and I just switched it up one day. I took the tablet outside and was like, I'm gonna sit here and listen to the birds and write, and I pumped out, like, I think one of my better articles that day, just the change of setting. And then once that was done, I was like, I feel accomplished. I beat depression. I am God. Like,
wow, you're God now. You went from being depressed to being like, I'm amazing.
Right.
Almighty.
It's just that sense
Wow.
of accomplishment. You know what I'm saying? Like, slump
So
busted.
humble you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. The depression just keeps the ego in check, you know. But are there things that
Oh
you
my God.
guys
Simmer down.
are the things that you guys employ? Not to get you to like the God complex level, but just like good day. It's a good day, and I've found a tool to maintain that the
It's
good state
very
of mind.
Aries energy radiating off of Drew. And he's like, I'm gonna do it, but to like the most amazing level.
It's
To the most
not only
awesomeness.
an Aries rising, I'm also an Aquarius sun, so it's like it's yeah, very much like the God complex can come out at times. I try to remind myself like you're 5'2", settle down.
4'2"?
5'2". God. Please note that there's an extra foot there.
He's on a
I worked
stool
hard.
right now.
I brought my step stool to the podcast.
I also meditate. I try to meditate every single day, at least once. Well, once. I don't do it twice. I should do it twice, actually, but I do it once before bed because it kind of helps keep the anxiety
Yeah.
as level as possible. I journal. I try to journal at least twice a week because sometimes I just don't have the motivation to. But I think those are my go-tos. I think talking to friends, just feeling like having someone to talk to, even if it's just something silly that happened in the day. I feel like that's a form of self-care for me. Or just spending time with my mom, because we went through a really hard time this year, and just being in her company just is something comforting right now. And then there's my cat. Just spending time with my cat in my bed. He is my therapy cat. When I am sad, he is there. The other day I was in bed feeling down, and he climbed into my lap and just sat there and purred and was like, "Give me pets, it'll make you feel better." And it did. Simple things.
Sometimes it's the little stuff with the biggest impact.
So some of the things that I do throughout the week is journaling as well. There's times where I just go to like Tim Hortons and grab a coffee or tea and drive around. Especially this time of year, I like driving around seeing the lights on people's houses. So that's what I'll be doing very shortly. For some reason, that helps me with keeping my anxiety down.
I like that one.
I'm such a fan of Christmas lights. Like that is like one of the things that get me out of a slump so
Something
fast.
about it just makes you so happy, right?
Right, though.
Yeah.
They're just so pretty.
I miss living where it snowed because like it was a certain experience being a Floridian and seeing Christmas lights twinkle off of the snow. I was like, oh, this is like way more beautiful than back home.
Magic.
Yeah.
Snow makes me so happy.
It's too cold.
You can
I like
stay
seeing
down
it from
here. I'll go to the
afar.
snow.
Okay.
I was trying to think of how I could put what I do into like a neat little basket, but the only word that kind of comes to mind is I'm kind to myself. Through my 20s, I think I was trying to not only fill that hole and then also dealing with my bad coping mechanisms and not even realizing anything about mental health or therapy and things like that, on top of being Asian. And there's this expectation in the culture where you're kind of like supposed to be successful and accomplish things and things like that. And I think that also reinforced a toxic behavior of, if I was not doing something, I was wasting time. When Drew, you were talking about how you could kind of relate with your family being Southern Baptist, and it really made me realize like what I'm talking about is like we're relating on the front that we're not just living our own lives, we're like an extension of something else, and that something else is feeling like we're disrupting something.
Yeah.
And so we're forced to kind of like not show how we're feeling, what we're going through. If it doesn't align with the bigger picture, then you're bringing shame to everybody, not just yourself. You're bringing shame to all these people. And then that ends up turning into yeah, like you feel like you can't be honest with how you feel. Trying to shift that mindset. And it's hard because you have to pick away at the things that are bad. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what those are. Like, what is just me being like someone who's stubborn and valid to be stubborn versus being stubborn in a way where um I've picked up these bad habits to in response to things. And so for me, it's not really anything in particular. It's just when I start seeing myself beating myself down for not like doing a certain thing like perfect the first time, not being able to just let it go and just letting it like continue to build. Once I start realizing, oh, I'm getting into that habit again. And sometimes it's just a matter of me sitting there and evaluating the situation. And sometimes if I'm not too far gone, I can go and just do something else, an activity or whatever, and just tell myself it's not that important, like get over it. And it's taken me a long time. I know I'm still not there yet, but if I look back to how I was like 10 or so years ago, I would definitely find myself in situations where I'm really making things much harder for myself, and I'm not like growing as a person. So in not so many words, yeah, I just try to be kind to myself. However that ends up happening, I have to remember to give myself a break.
That's fair.
Daily affirmations, very
Yes.
important. It's so uncomfortable to start, but they're so important.
Affirmations feel so awkward, but like after doing them, I do affirmations in the morning before I meditate, and I typically will find one really good one and kind of let myself sit on that during the meditation. And then I have like a series of nighttime affirmations that I use that I'll use either before or after my meditations. It always feels so awkward, but like I've it's so funny how your brain starts to really engage with that like positive self-talk, because especially somebody that's so used to like not being kind enough to myself, I almost get really like into beating myself up mentally, right? It's because that's the only thing I know. So after kind of getting past like those first 3 months of like really awkward positive affirmations, like at night especially or in the morning when I wake up and I'm like, I am kind, I am smart, I am important, like that's right, don't lie to like don't lie and say mean things about yourself. That's true. It's so weird because I have to check myself because I'm like, well, this was to maybe get a healthy ego, but now I have to like pick and choose my affirmations more wisely. Otherwise, the ego is like, yeah, you're the bomb. Who cares? Who cares about the haters? It's such an effective brain rewiring tool, though. Really, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm sure we could talk forever about these sort of things, but does anyone have any kind of closing feelings or thoughts before we close out the episode?
I think to close it out, just remember how important it is to take care of yourself. Like mental health is just as important as physical health. Um, I don't know. Like, be kind to yourself, as we've been saying, and I don't know. Just be gentle. It's so important when you're struggling to be gentle with yourself because it's hard.
And to piggyback off of Nessa's, like mental health is really such a key component of overall health, right? Like it's not health isn't just about like physical health, the physical wellness. Like really, if you don't get your mind in check, you're gonna be playing catch up, from the time you hit the ground running. So yeah, like Nessa said, just remember to be kind for yourself, and even if it's only a few seconds, like remember to take those few seconds out of your day for just to do something, even if it's just as simple as like having a snack you enjoy. Just like at some point in your day, be kind to yourself and put yourself first, because at the end of the day, when our human experience is over, it's only going to be you. So you got to start putting that your personal happiness first in some way every day. And if you can do it, I think just in small ways, it'll snowball into a bigger sort of self improvement type of effort.
Just be kind to yourself and take it one moment at a time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, especially Mark, for joining us today. As always, I'm your host, Jay.
Co-host Nessa.
Co-host Drew.
Thank you for joining
And
us
this is Mark.
today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.